I was 17 the night my entire world folded in on itself like a collapsing house of cards. The kind of night people warn you about without ever saying it directly. The kind of night that starts ordinary, almost boring, and ends with you staring at your reflection in a bus window, wondering how your life got set on fire in a matter of hours. It started with a dinner. Just a regular Saturday family dinner at my parents' house, crowded, loud, the smell of barbecue mixing with my grandmother's perfumes that always had a sharp, floral edge. My dad was outside flipping steaks like he was auditioning for some backyard cooking show, while my mom floated around the living room greeting people like she was the host of a holiday special. She loved these nights, loved the attention, loved the illusion that she had created this perfect, close-knit family. If you had walked in that night, you would have thought we had it all. You would have thought I had it all. But within a few hours, I would learn that illusions are fragile things. And families, no matter how close, can flip on you faster than a coin toss. It's strange looking back now, 10 years later, knowing that everything was already brewing beneath the surface while I sat there eating mashed potatoes and listening to my uncle make the same tired jokes he told every gathering. If someone had whispered in my ear, "Hey, Jackson, your whole life's about to go off a cliff," I think I would have laughed. I remember glancing across the room and seeing my adopted sister, Lily, sitting stiffly on the edge of the couch. She was 16 then, a year younger than me. We weren't close, but not distant either. More like two planets orbiting the same sun without ever getting in each other's gravitational pull. She looked off. Not sad, not sick. Off. Nervous. Pale. Like she was holding her breath. I tried to catch her eye at one point, maybe even just shoot a silent, "You good?" But she looked away too quickly. Looking back, that should have been a sign. But hindsight is a cruel storyteller. My girlfriend at the time, Megan, was tucked under my arm on one of the recliners, scrolling her phone. I remember her perfume more clearly than the meal. Sweet, warm, a little citrusy. She laughed at something she saw online and nudged me to look. I smiled, oblivious, happy even. It would be one of the last moments I ever tasted that kind of uncomplicated happiness. Because the universe, it seems, doesn't like things to be too peaceful. And Lily, God, I can still hear the tremble in her voice, stood up in the middle of dinner. Just stood up while everyone was passing around bread and telling some story about my dad's coworker. Her chair scraped loudly across the hardwood floor. The room went quiet. Forks froze midair. My dad even paused halfway through cutting a steak. And she said it. She said the sentence that detonated the rest of my life. "I'm pregnant," she whispered, her voice barely carrying. And, "It's Jackson's!" I swear the world stopped. Silence. Like someone had pulled the plug on the universe. Then the explosion. "What?" came from my mom first, sharp and shrill. My fork dropped onto my plate. My heart stopped in my chest. "Lily, what are you talking about?" I remember saying those words, but they came out sounding far away, like I was underwater. Everyone was staring at me. Their eyes felt like spotlights. My dad stood up so fast his chair slammed backward into the wall. My grandmother gasped loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Megan pulled her arm away from me, her face going white. "No," I said, my voice cracking. "Lily, no, that's not... Why would you... We never... I couldn't even say it. My brain couldn't compute the accusation." She wouldn't look at me. Tears welled in her eyes, rolling down her cheeks, and she whispered, "I'm sorry." That was it. Just, "I'm sorry." Not an explanation, not a reason, just enough to make everyone believe her. Enough to cement the lie. The room erupted. My dad lunged toward me like he was going to grab me by the throat, but my uncle held him back. My mom kept yelling that she knew something was off, that she should have paid more attention, that this was disgusting. I tried to speak, tried to explain, but every time I opened my mouth, someone shouted over me. I looked at Lily, begging silently for her to tell the truth, but she just cried harder. I turned to Megan, desperate, panicked, reaching for her hand, but she jerked away like I burned her. "Don't touch me," she said, her voice shaking. That hurt more than anything else in that moment. I still remember my dad pointing at the door. "Get out!" My mom echoed it. My uncle looked away. My grandmother whispered, "How could you?" And Megan didn't even say goodbye. She just stood up, grabbed her purse, and walked out the back door without looking back. The same girl who told me she loved me 2 nights earlier couldn't even look me in the eyes. All because of one lie. I kept shaking my head, saying, "It's not true. It's not true. It's not true." Like repetition would bend reality back into place. But no one listened. And that's what I think broke me the most. Not the accusation itself, but how incredibly fast their love evaporated the moment they thought I had done something wrong. One sentence from Lily erased 17 years of being a son, a brother, a grandson. In 5 minutes, I went from being part of a family to a monster they wanted out of their house. And I left. I had to. My dad shoved me toward the door with such rage that I nearly tripped over the welcome mat. I remember stepping outside, hearing the door slam behind me, and realizing I didn't have my wallet, my phone charger, or even my jacket. It was cold, the kind of cold that crawls under your skin. And as I walked down the street, my breath shaking in the air, my life falling apart in real time, one thought echoed louder than the rest. How fast people can turn on you when it benefits their version of the truth. That was the night everything broke. Chapter 2. The Fall, the Silence, and the Stranger. I didn't realize how dark the neighborhood looked at night until I had to walk through it without a destination. Every streetlight felt dimmer than usual, every passing car louder. I kept waiting to wake up, to snap out of the nightmare, but it wasn't a nightmare. It was happening. For real. Every cold step reminded me that I had nowhere to go. Some part of me still expected my phone to buzz with a message saying, "Come back, we figured it out." But it didn't. In fact, when I finally checked my phone, the only messages were from Megan. 2 unread texts. "We're done." And, "Don't contact me." Those 2 sentences felt like someone pressing a thumb into an open wound. I slid the phone back into my pocket with numb fingers and kept walking. The first hour was just shock. The second was anger, white-hot, pulsing, useless. The third was fear. Real fear. Because the truth hit me. I was 17, homeless in one night, and had no one. At least that's what I believed at the time. The first place I tried was already closed. The only person I thought might listen was my best friend, Ryan. We'd been close since 7th grade. Video games, soccer, stupid jokes, the whole teenage boy friendship package. I headed to his house. It was a long walk, but adrenaline kept me going. When I finally reached his place and knocked on his window, the curtain shifted. His face appeared. Relief washed through me, until his expression changed. He slid the window open an inch. "Dude, my mom said I can't let you inside." "What? Did she talk to my family?" He swallowed. "Everyone's talking, Jackson. My mom said your sister told the whole family at dinner. What she said isn't true. I didn't..." He whispered, "I know. Or I think I know. But my mom said if she catches you here, she'll call your parents. Ryan, just let me in for one night, 1 hour, please, man." He hesitated for a long moment, chewing his lip, looking torn. Then he shook his head. "I'm sorry." He closed the window. And that was that. The second door slammed in my face that night, sleeping under a bus stop. It was almost midnight when the cold became bone deep. I found myself at a bus stop under a flickering fluorescent light, hugging myself for warmth. Cars sped past, their red taillights blurring into streaks. I sat on the bench and stared at the empty road. I didn't cry. I think I was too shocked to cry. My body was protecting me by shutting everything down. My hands were trembling so badly, I had to press them between my knees. Every sound in the darkness made me flinch. A dog barking, a car door slamming, wind whistling through the trees. I kept replaying the scene. Lily's voice, my dad's anger, the way Megan recoiled like I was radioactive. How fast love became disgust. How fast family became strangers. The more I replayed it, the more hollow my chest felt. At some point, a bus pulled up. The last one of the night. The driver opened the door and looked at me, confused. "You getting on?" I stared at him. "Where does it go?" "Downtown." "Downtown where?" He shrugged. End of the line. Something about that felt symbolic enough to hurt. I didn't have the fare. "I can't," I murmured. He nodded slowly, gave me a look that wasn't pity but something gentler, then closed the doors and drove off. After the bus disappeared, the silence felt heavier. And that's when the fear finally cracked me open. I started shaking harder. My breath hitched. My throat tightened. I wasn't built for this. I wasn't ready for this. I was just a kid thrown into a...
Chapter 4. Rebuilding from Ashes. The first days in the new city felt like walking barefoot across broken glass. Every step forward hurt, but stopping wasn't an option. The air smelled different here. Less suburban familiarity, more car exhaust and wet concrete. The buildings were taller. People walked faster. No one knew my name. And God, that anonymity felt like oxygen. I arrived with $200, a backpack, and Min's list folded so many times it looked centuries old. The city bus dropped me off near a community center offering youth housing assistance. I walked through the doors, praying they wouldn't ask too many questions. They didn't. A tired woman behind the desk took one look at me, shivering, exhausted, carrying everything I owned, and she asked one simple question. "Do you want help, or do you want directions?" I didn't hesitate. "Help." She nodded. "Then you're in the right place." The first shelter that gave me hope. This new shelter wasn't like the one back home. There, it felt like a place for people stuck in permanent crisis. Here, the vibe was different. Organized, structured. They had curfews, chores, therapy sessions, tutors, job prep classes. It wasn't easy. Nothing about it was easy. But it was safe. The first night there, I lay on a bunk bed listening to distant traffic instead of my parents shouting or my sister's trembling voice accusing me of something that shattered everything. I clutched Min's list like a lifeline. Maybe this wasn't a restart. Maybe this was an escape. Maybe this was survival. Becoming someone new. On paper first. The shelter staff told me that without access to my original records, birth certificate, school ID, anything, it would be nearly impossible to get a job. And I couldn't request documents from my parents because of the restraining order. I felt sick when they said that, completely trapped again. But one of the staff members, a man named Daryl with salt and pepper hair and a stern but fatherly energy, said, "There's always a way to rebuild. Always." He connected me with a legal aid volunteer named Rachel. She was in her late 20s, always wearing bright scarves and carrying an overstuffed binder. "Your situation isn't the first I've seen," she said gently. "If you're a minor who's been forced out, we can petition for special status. That will allow us to file for new identification documents." "New?" I asked, "Like new?" She shrugged. "New enough to start your life without depending on the people who abandon you." The idea both terrified and liberated me. "Will I have to go back home?" I asked. Her eyes softened. "No. In fact, legally, no one can force you." And just like that, the first thread of my old life snapped for good. Over the next few weeks, she helped me navigate a maze of paperwork. Affidavits from the shelter staff, statements about abandonment, proof of homelessness, and records from the original shelter in my hometown confirming I'd been admitted there after being kicked out. It was messy, slow, and emotionally draining. But at the end of it, I walked out of the county building with something impossible in my hands. A new state ID, new address, new mailing information. The name was still mine, Jackson, because I wasn't ready to give that up. Not yet. But the freedom on that small plastic card felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. For the first time since Lily lied, I had proof that I existed beyond the shadow of that accusation. Stumbling, failing, and trying again. I wish I could say everything got better instantly. Of course it didn't. My first job applications were disasters. Do you have any experience? No. Any references? No. A high school diploma? Not yet. Most employers didn't bother calling back. I applied everywhere: fast food, delivery, landscaping, janitorial work. Rejections piled up like bricks in a wall I couldn't climb. Some nights I lay awake wondering if my parents had been right to throw me away. Maybe I was worthless. Maybe I was doomed. Maybe starting over was a mistake. On my worst night, after my 7th job rejection in 2 days, I went behind the shelter and cried until my throat hurt. Ugly, shaking, hopeless crying. Daryl found me there. He didn't tell me to get up, didn't tell me to be strong. He just sat down next to me on the cold pavement. "You're grieving," he said. "This is grief." "I'm not grieving," I muttered. "They're still alive." "That doesn't matter," he said. "You lost a home, a life, a version of yourself. Grieving makes sense." Something about hearing that, someone validating the pain, made it hurt a little less. "You know what I see when I look at you?" he asked. I didn't answer. "I see a kid who survived his world ending. Most people don't get back up after that, but you're trying. That's grit. More than most people your age ever have." I didn't believe him at the time, but it stuck with me. Min became more than a stranger. A month into the new city, I finally worked up the courage to call Min. I spent 10 minutes staring at his number, afraid he wouldn't remember me, or worse, would regret helping me. He picked up on the second ring. "Jackson?" he said immediately. "You okay?" No "who is this?" No confusion, just recognition. I swallowed hard. I'm trying. I'm trying to rebuild." "I knew you would," he said warmly. "Where are you now?" I told him about the city, the shelter, the failed job applications. He listened with the same quiet attention he'd given me the night we met. Then he said something that changed the next chapter of my life. "I have a cousin who owns a small repair shop, takes in walk-ins. He needs help, someone willing to learn. He can't pay much at first, but it's honest work. Want me to put in a word?" My heart jumped. "Yes, please, anything." "Good," he said. "Call him tomorrow morning. And Jackson," he added, "I'm proud of you." I didn't know how much I needed those words until I heard them. The first job, the first step back into myself. The next morning, I walked into a cramped electronics repair shop wedged between a laundromat and a pawn store. The sign outside flickered, "Quad-Tech Repair." Inside, the walls were lined with shelves of old phones, tangled wires, cracked laptops. It smelled like dust, solder, and the faint scent of burnt plastic. A small man with thick glasses looked up as I entered. "You're Min's friend?" he asked. "Yeah," I said nervously. "Jackson." He nodded. "Min says you need a chance." I believe him. No interview, no scrutiny, no suspicion. Just trust, even though I hadn't earned it yet. "I can't pay much at first," he said, "but I can teach you if you're willing to work." "I am," I said instantly. "Good," he replied. "Then sweep the floor, clean the counters. We start simple." And just like that, I had a job. A real job. My first paycheck was barely enough to buy groceries, but I stared at it for a long time, overwhelmed by the fact that it was mine. Something I earned. Something no one could take away. I started learning how to repair phones. Then laptops. Then tablets. Then complex board soldering. Koa was strict but patient. He didn't sugarcoat things, but he taught me everything he knew. When I made mistakes, he corrected me. When I improved, he nodded approvingly. When I mastered something new, he said, "You're faster than I expected. Min was right about you." Those words warmed something in me I thought was permanently frozen. The ghost of my old life still haunted me. Even as I rebuilt, the past stayed close, like a shadow that never touched the ground. Every time I passed a girl around Lily's age, I felt a twist in my stomach. Every time someone laughed behind me, I wondered if they were mocking me. The trauma clung to me in ways I didn't understand yet. I avoided eye contact, kept my back to walls, flinched whenever adult men raised their voices. Years later, therapists would tell me these were the signs of deep betrayal trauma, emotional exile, and identity destruction. At the time, I just thought I was broken. But slowly, I rebuilt routines. Work, shelter, studying for my GED, saving money, eating regularly, talking to men weekly. With each cycle of those habits, something inside me strengthened, even if it wasn't visible yet. 3 years later, the first version of the man I'd become. I passed my GED at 19. I moved into a tiny studio with peeling paint and squeaky floors at 20. I became the lead technician at Koa's shop at 21. By 22, I was fixing things Koa himself struggled with. He would laugh and say, "You're going to put me out of business one day." I'd laugh back, but I didn't know that prediction wasn't too far from the truth. By 23, Koa trusted me enough to run the shop whenever he visited family overseas. I handled customers, repairs, supply orders. The responsibility felt terrifying, but right. Like I was finally becoming someone I chose to be. Someone who wasn't defined by a lie. Someone who wasn't running. I wasn't healed. Not fully. Maybe not even halfway. But I wasn't drowning. Not anymore. And one night, as I locked up the shop and looked at my reflection in the dark glass door,